Welcome back to the show. Today, we're going to talk about mental toughness. And are you taking care of your brain? My big thing is garbage in, garbage out. Let's get into it. So, a lot of people talk about mental toughness. And one of the things that I always think about when I think about that subject is how's this affecting your psyche? So, people a lot of times go, what is mental toughness? How do you achieve it? Where are you going to get into it? So, one of the things that I really believe wholeheartedly is that if you're going to subject yourself to putting bad information into your brain on a consistent basis, then it's not going to take you very far. And it's going to start affecting your behavior, the way that you think about things, the way that you process information. It's even going to get you to a point where you start talking and you're not even going to recognize how you're processing your information or how you're even communicating. And I think a lot of times we get lost in this and we're not even paying attention to what we're actually allowing to penetrate our brains. So information as a whole, right? We're consuming information all the time, right? So it's out there. It's relatively available. I mean, I don't think you can pretty much go, 10 seconds without getting some form of medium of information consumption if you really wanted to. Right? You can constantly be on your phone. You can be looking at your computer, you're reviewing information, you're streaming, you're listening to podcasts, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. It's all out there and it's just inundating us constantly. And if you don't think that it's affecting you, it is. It's affecting you. It's affecting you. How could it not? Because unless we're sitting in a box or a bubble where we're completely quiet and not getting any of this exposure to information, it's going to affect you somewhat. So what are you going to do about that? Because I will say that there's several studies right now that are talking about mental health issues, anxiety issues, people having trouble with coping, people having trouble with depression. There's got to be some relatability because of all this information that we're consuming. I mean, when I think about growing up and looking at the access of information that was gathered, it wasn't very real time, right? It was sometimes at the end of the day, you might have heard about something on the other side of the world, but now everything's available instantaneously. And that comes with a whole nother set of issues. And if you're not careful, that's going to affect you in one way or another. And that's really going to keep you to getting to where you want to go. And some of the things that I just want to kind of dive into is what information are you consuming on a daily basis? And I'll give you a prime example. I used to listen to this show on a daily basis, and I got to the point where I was listening to it like all the time. There was like 4 episodes a day, and I was just filling my mindset. And it was a very intense show. Everything was, sensationalized, everything was a deal. Everything was something that, had to be dealt with. It was like falling off a cliff, driving off a cliff. And after a while, I started noticing my friends, my family, my wife, they're saying, man, you're just a little more intense than usual, or your point of view has kind of changed. And as I started to really think about it, I did notice that the way that I talked, the way that my point of view was, what information I would talk to people about, right? The subject matter of conversation would all just come back to that very thing or that very style. And it just wasn't very healthy for me. And actually, quite frankly, I think people just got tired of it. And I don't blame them, because if I was on the other side of that, the last thing I want to hear about is stuff that's just such a big deal, like all the time. And we got to do this and we got to do this. And what are we going to worry about next? And that information overload is very real in our society and culture today, right? We have so much exposure to this. If we're not careful, then we are going to find ourselves just consumed. And that's why you have to be very careful on what you allow in your brain. I mean, think about this. It's like your physical body, right? Nutrition. I'll give you a prime example. I always like to say that, you are what you eat, right? You've heard that terminology and people talk about that. But there was a guy, it was a long time ago, and I believe it was called Super Size Me. And he actually did something, it did a show on this, and it was insane. And he literally ate junk food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 30 days. And I think he was just trying to prove a point of what would happen. And the crazy thing about it is that, when you watched the progression of all of this, you started to see his physical appearance change, his energy level change. I mean, the guy just looked sickly after a while. And as a matter of fact, I think he did a lot of damage to himself. And I can't remember exactly what happened, but that's not the point. The point is after he consumed this junk for 30 days straight, right? right? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He made himself sick. He made himself in a predicament to really prove this point. And good for him. I guess he went all in on it. But I think the same thing is very apparent. It's not, I think, I know. If you're constantly putting junk in your brain, then what do you think is going to come out? And when you really think about what I'm saying here, I'm really talking about whether or not you're going to be fully functional and be able to reach your potential that you're supposed to reach, or the goals that you're setting for yourself, or whatever it is. And if you're looking to be successful or just be able to function on a normal basis, you have to guard your brain, right? You have to take responsibility on the information that's coming in, and you really have to learn what really triggers what. And what that means is that if you are watching things or you are consuming information that is changing your behavior or changing your mindset, changing the way that you're talking to or how you're feeling on a daily basis, then you need to check yourself. You need to make sure that you're looking at this thing and going, man, this isn't really good for me, right? I don't need to consume this information, because somehow in some way, right, it's penetrating your brain and in your subconscious, and it is actually flowing out of you, whether you even fully realize it or not. And I know for a fact that this has personally happened to me. So I could attest to this, because when I was listening to that information that I was talking about earlier, it was really affecting me, and it was really causing some outcomes as far as the way that I was feeling and how motivated I was on a daily basis and what I was willing to process and how things started to affect me. It really took a toll. And one of the things that I had to do is I had to shut it off. And I'm not saying that I don't listen to it every now and then, but it's not 4 times a day. You know, I might listen to it once every 10 days or something, because I want to stay informed, and that's the information that I like to hear. But doing too much of it was clearly causing a problem. And that's something that I had to take a note of and make sure that I wasn't going to be able to consume that information. So it really got me thinking. It's like, well, what else am I looking at? If I'm looking to grow and I'm looking to go to the next level, or I just want to calm myself or reduce my stress level, what else can I start doing? And, you know, I started looking around and I realized that this really has a significant impact, because if I want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I need to do on a daily basis, being productive, I don't need to give myself a disadvantage. So neither do you. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're consuming information that's not helping you. It's an utter waste of time. It's inefficient, especially if you want to grow, especially if you want to accomplish something. You need to make sure that you're giving yourself a leg up. Just like in health and wellness, nutrition's a big part of it, exercise, making sure that you're doing the things that are needed for your brain to be able to function properly are utmost importance if you have a specific goal in mind, or if you just want to function normally. So here are some steps that you can practice. You need to, like I said, understand how you react to information. If you know something is pushing you in a bad way or giving you a negative mindset, or, you know, giving you anxiety, don't watch it. Don't consume that information. But step one is really just understanding how you're being affected by it. So if you recognize this, then you need to do something about it. You need to cut it out completely, right? Or you need to reduce the amount of time that you're exposing yourself to it. The other part is discipline. So if bad information causes these type of issues that I'm talking about, then what do you think good information is, right? Gonna do same thing. You know, if you're putting good information into your brain and you're consuming good content, you're actually learning, you're listening to people that are in the right growth mindset, you know, they're doing these things. Why do you think people talk about it all the time on, hey, you should listen to this person, or you should listen to that person? Oh, hey, I heard a podcast. I think it's something that's going to help you. Or I saw this video on XYZ, right? Everybody says that when you're looking to do something and looking to grow, that you're looking to find information that's going to be that mindset, right? So if you're wanting to grow, you need to be listening to negative stuff, you know, on a daily basis. You need to be listening to things that are going to give you that positive mindset, that's going to give you that bump, that's going to give you that encouragement, that's going to give you that energy every single day to go out and face the world and do what you need to do to get it done. So put yourself in that predicament where you're setting yourself up for success by consuming good information. So the other thing that I would say is really helpful to me, and it's probably going to be really helpful to a lot of people, and maybe this is something that you already do, but I like to read books, but I actually like to read the physical book on the pages. I can't tell you exactly why, and I'm sure there's some really detailed science behind this by actually reading off of the pages at that cadence, right? Where it's just not so fast or, it's not on a screen, but it's actually on pages, somehow brings me better information quality, right? So I consume that information better than if I'm actually reading it off of a screen. I can't tell you why, but that is something that helps me immensely. And it really kind of brings me down and it really slows my mind down. So I'm a lot more focused on what they're actually telling, what I'm learning, from the book, based on the information, right? That's right in front of me. It just penetrates my brain better. I understand it better and it gives me more clarity on what it is that I'm learning. And the last thing is, if you're going to be doing this and you're going to be doing this well, then you have to surround yourself with growth-minded content. You're going to be able to discern after a period of time, once you get disciplined, what content is going to be good for you, what information that you want to consume, and why it's going to be good for you and how you're going to get there. And you're going to be able to identify these things, but you have to stay disciplined. You have to be willing to get yourself into a routine and making sure that every day that you're preparing yourself, to be able to go out into the world and do what you need to get done. And to do that, you need to make sure that whatever you're consuming in your brain, you're taking extra good care of it, just like you take care of your body, right? Just like you take care of, all the other things that you have to do, whether it's finances, whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter. It's logical. Garbage in, garbage out. If you found this episode helpful, share it with a friend. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you like what you heard, subscribe. You can find us on YouTube at HeyCharlesBiz, and we're HeyCharles77 on Instagram and TikTok. See you next time.